Good morning, my students. This is me, د.هاني الحسني, and that's a course of semantics for senior students. I wish you have a nice weekend and you start reading hard and become a studious student somehow after almost 2 months of that electronic semester. We know that we are in a quite a tough condition and situation based on the COVID-19 outbreak, but we have to move on and continue our life. Today we have to continue the chapter 9 based on the plan and our or the plan for that course. We put each week we have another topic or a topic that we could discuss. Today we have to discuss something which called pragmatics inference after Grice. So the inference here, how we can deduce the ideas. The speaker A maybe say something and the hearer could analyze or think about the exact meaning. And like the inferences here, we can deduce or get the meaning just because we have previous knowledge or prior knowledge. Like if I say Chomsky is a well-known scientist, and for those who read a lot of information, they will know that Chomsky, he's a linguist and he is a father of linguistics. He thought about some theories. These theories help people in the 21st and the 20th century because of the science of language. So the community of linguists, they will recognize Noam Chomsky for linguistics, and Grice here theory. Barbara Grice thought about four maxims and the sub-maxims that invented, and later on he mentioned relevance theory. So in that part, because of relevance theory, we know in maxims we have four maxims: maxim of quantity, maxim of equality, and maxim of manner, and maxim of relevance, and which is the end. And out of it emerged the relevance theory, which contain something related how the speakers could deal with the speech, and this speech involves so many sentences. These sentences will be in the filter. This filter will work with your brain and mind to reanalyze the speaking or the speech based on the truth conditional meaning of a sentence. So here we have truth conditional meaning. Let's move to my slide here. I bought some slides, semantics chapter 9, and that's me. At the beginning, relevance theory. So if we ask ourselves about relevance theory, for sure this is an extra knowledge for relevance theory. Why? Because I asked you to do a research, and this research could be a topic related to pragmatics. For you can talk about relevance theory as a base or fundamental base for your research. There is no research could be built on nothing. So the relevance theory is kind of basement for your work. And here, for instance, do they mean the power cut happened a few minutes ago, yesterday? So there has been a power cut. So I could ask myself when that happened, and the question here, it depends about how you are tracing or investigating about the exact time. So was it here in the speaker's neighborhood or in the hearer's neighborhood? So there has been a power cut. We ask ourselves, this kind of sentence could be uttered by a speaker or either by a hearer, and because of the relevant theory we could trace the exact sentences. However, the fact is that we use such simple trances all the time, and they can be very informative given to the right context. So the simple daily conversation won't be quite hectic to understand or ambiguous, but the sentence that just been given to you as a reader or a hearer you will try to analyze it one more time. We have here also, however, the fact is that we use such simple utterances. A central idea of relevant theory is that an utterance is relevant to a hearer when the hearer can gain positive cognitive effects. So the point of positive or cognitive effects is how you find out the smooth or the curve of the speaking or the speech that being held between two person or two or a few people that already having a longer conversation. So there is two aspects for relevance. First, the most relevant interpretation of an utterance must lead to inferences that the hearer wouldn't otherwise have been able to make. So the deducing or the inferences that we conclude any kind of sentence, we can reach a final conclusion. That's what we call the first interpretation. Second, the inferences or the expectations that we assume about whatever it's being said here is accessible to the hearer in the sense that it must be possible to draw those inferences in short space of the time with relatively little effort. If the inferential process requires too much effort, then the inferences cannot be drawn. So the inferential process requires too much effort. It means you have to use your short and long-term memory. You have to squeeze your mind and think deeply about some sentences, because you cannot look at the sentence and think about literal meaning. Usually we need to look at the technical meaning or the meaning that's been hidden or implied in the sentence itself, and that's why we could back to another context or conversation to check out whether it's true or not. And that's a way for understanding. Relevance theory also maintains a speaker comply with communicative principle of relevance. So we have relevance whether the communication that already happened, is it relevant or not. And here a hearer, on the other hand, computes relevance by selecting most obvious accessible interpretation. So when somebody is talking to you as a hearer, you are computing or you are gaining the knowledge and interpreting it rapidly and fast, and that's why you have the process of achieving such kind of relevant interpretation. At the end, you can give a final conclusion, maybe to 1 hour speech, if you are in the session, and consequently a lot of people are talking about one idea or subject. You can say at the end, you can conclude and wrap it up to people, okay, what happened or what we are trying to say is blah blah blah, and that's how we convince others about our interpretation. For instance, suppose Mary is working at her computer one sunny afternoon and the screen suddenly goes blank for no apparent reason. John then comes into the room and utters. So the way here for what we need to say is how you can think about sentences. And later we have pragmatic markers. So the markers here, we need to involve it in pragmatics. Why? Speakers have other ways of indicating how their utterances are to be interpreted. So I can say one sentence and a lot of people around me will interpret the sentence based on their way of thinking. Some will be right and others will be inaccurate or wrong. There is no problem in that, because as a speaker you cannot trace others' mind, and you cannot recognize whether they have consciousness or not. And they include, or they can include, short forms such as you know, will, I mean, I don't know, which are optional and loosely attached to the utterance. And that's how, if we trace or if we move with the flow of the sentences. Sometimes you have forgotten some points and you say, you know, well, I mean, I don't know, some kind of markers. These markers, it will loosely attach to the utterance. I mean, the utterance will not be in focus with it, and usually the utterance will for sure, or the hearer will skip these words to listen for the following. That's by default happen to many hearers or to the speakers between that held the conversation between themselves. As a result, these are pragmatic markers, and they can be used to mark speaker's attitude to the listener or to what is being said. So the second phase or point for pragmatic markers is how the attitude or speaker's attitude to the listener or what is being said. That's another marker speakers can use, you know, to indicate that knowledge is being treated as shared, something already well known, or something people can easily think about it or acquaint it, or kind of acquiring it without any difficulty. And I mean to self-correct or to mark an attempt to clarify something. When you say I mean, here you are saying I mean, maybe you can say this kind of expression because you find the facial expression of others a change, and you try to tell them the truth of your speaking within a few words or in a simple style. The third point here, they had been reading something by Charles Wright, you know, the famous poet, and well, I mean, he's famous in America at least, but they didn't really understand it. But here, and you know, I mean, all of these expressions just to attract the attention and for the marker of continuation of the conversation in the flow. The fourth one, after making a statement about the poet, the speaker uses will to mark shift from conveying information to commenting on it. So will here in this kind of example, it's used to convey, with I mean introducing a clarification, and will for commenting. And next we have here a more recent change of function has turned I don't know into a pragmatic marker. So that I don't know, it's changed to pragmatic marker. Sometimes you are trying to say a lot of sentences and suddenly you replied yourself when you are a speaker and say I don't know. It can be either way, and here the phrase that here looked like you lack of knowledge. You have a question like what's like itchy or whatever. Here I don't know to become a marker of hesitation or uncertainty. So this is an example for even maybe disagreement. Lee, I'm not very fond of Edinburgh. It's so drab and it's always cold there. So Edinburgh is kind of cold place. And Jen here, oh, I don't know. I really enjoyed going to festival there last year. So her response looked like she didn't want to tell him I disagree with you, but she said I don't know. It means she is already disagree with Lee, but in the same time she used a polite style to respond that she has another point of view, which is standing against Lee here. By appearing hesitant about disagreeing, the speaker can signal a desire not to challenge the other speaker. It means when you say I don't know, I really enjoyed it. It's a way for, or the style of speaking that you are used to or using to avoid a clash or a conflict, or maybe kind of a problem with others. Sometimes people, when they speak one sentence and they need others to hear them, not to argue with them. Argumentation or argument wouldn't be fruitful for many conversations. So they tend to not to challenge others. It seems to be a new way to being polite in interaction. That's how we deal with the pragmatic marker. Let's back to the book, and here we have in the book kind of meaning for the sentences. Here we have a kind of a few sentences. These sentences follow the truth table in chapter 4. If we read the first sentence, like here number 1, and we need to trace the pragmatic interference or inference, pragmatic inference, how we deduce or how we find out the reality of these sentences. So here the Chinese invented the folding umbrella, and the Egyptians invented the sailboat. And in the second part, when we use and but we just reflect and twisted the sentence, the one who is in the end here become the first, and the second sentence here, or the first sentence becomes second in the second or B option. We can understand there is no change here. But in the second sentence, she gave him the key and he opened the door. For sure, this is very logic, and the sentence is really very logic. But B is not logic. He opened the door and she gave him the key. So we cannot understand the second one because it looks like ambiguous, or there is a level of ambiguity. And here we have in number 5, every year the foundation awards scholarship to a student of Swedish or Norwegian. B, you can take the bus or the train and still arrive by 5 o'clock. Here we need to understand that the reader will or can determine whether this example needs more or extra interpretation in the mind. So we can understand if you tell others you can take the bus or the train and still arrive by 5, it means maybe technically you can use the bus, but you have extra time to move on, and you can use the train for the late time if you want to reach more fast, or you have the faster, or use a faster what we call transportation. For sure it will be a train. And here in section 6 we can also trace the true level here when we use if Socrates was a woman, then 1 plus 1 is equal 3. And why here? Because women usually follow the emotions, and sometimes they can have these problems. So when we analyze if here, if 2 is odd, then 2 is even. If the Chinese invented gunpowder, then Martin Luther was German. So the case here, you are trying to show the implication. What is the implication? The logic of implication, how we put the sentences for more clarification. Number 7, if you are hungry, there are some pizza in the fridge. So 7 would predict some unlikely inferences. What are predicted inferences? If there is no pizza in the fridge, then you are not hungry. So if you are hungry, there is some pizza in the fridge. That's how we think about the prediction. Next we have the ambiguity of and here the ambiguity, we need to understand that using this sentence, like we have sentence 8, Hitler was Austrian and Stalin was Georgian. And when we talk about the A and B, in B they got married and had a baby. So if you didn't know exactly both leaders of two parts of the world, like if you didn't know that Hitler is a leader of Germany and Stalin is a leader of Russia, you can be confused. Why? Because when you read sentence B, they got married and had a baby, if you didn't know that both of them, they are men and they have family, you will commit a mistake by analyzing the sentence. And that's why here some they will think that this or these sentences, it could be ambiguous for them, For instance, what we need to understand is sometimes we have natural interpretation for the sentence, and sometimes we need to think deeply about the meaning, whether it has some potential implication or not. And that's why we can understand, okay, one from Russia, one from Germany, and they had a baby. For sure, it's not a big deal for understanding both types or both sentences. In here, Horn mentions several arguments against lexical ambiguity. Same two uses of and are found in most, if not all, languages. So, like semantic ambiguity can be found in all languages. No natural language contain conjunction, like here we have conjunction, they had a baby and they got married. This kind of conjunction of and is not really in all languages. Not only temporal but causal asymmetry. It means here for the sentences sometimes there is a symmetry, and we need to think of this kind of relationship. If we move to number 9 here, they got married and had a baby, but not necessarily in that order. It means maybe Hitler already married a lady and he got a baby, maybe in 1940, and Stalin was married, let's say, in 1930, and he got a baby maybe in 1932. So it's not in the same time, but at the end of their life, if we are narrating the story of both of them, we can say or use this style. That's how it could be persuasive to use this kind of sentence with and. So and here you can see they got married and had a baby, and here Hitler was Austrian and Stalin was Georgian. Okay, so the next part we have or. When we use or, we can think about what? For or, we have what we call Mary has son or a daughter. So you have the doubt. So what we mean here, there is thinking about the options. So Mary has son or daughter, a son or daughter. So there is no either options, because a here could be she has for sure a baby, but this baby could be a son or a daughter. It couldn't be both of them. So it's only one. But the second one, we need to hire somebody who speak either Chinese or Korean. It will be fine if we find somebody who speaks both, but usually this kind of one, it doesn't ask for two, but just asks for one language. And the third one, I can't decide whether to order fried noodles or pizza. So here the sentence have many options. Maybe the person ordered fried noodles, and maybe he ordered pizza, and maybe he ordered both of them, fried noodles and pizza. So all of the three explanations and interpretations could be accepted. D, stop or I will shoot. If you didn't stop, I will shoot you. So better to stop. So here I think you have the true level, and there is no problem in finding out the true level. So here we have bridging the gap between what is said vs what is implicated. Like here we have one sentence: she visited me here yesterday. All men and women gathered at the bank. So the understanding here, she visited me here yesterday. So you can think about it's not complete. Like you think about this sentence. Okay, what happened? She visited me here yesterday. There is kind of a story, we didn't get it. That's why we need to propose. Propose, it means you anticipate, you think more about what happened in the visiting time. And old men and women gathered at the bank. This one, if you look at it, you will find it could be syntactic and lexical ambiguity. Why? Because it could be old men in the bank, but women gathered at the bank. Women gather and old men, maybe they are separated, and maybe old men and women, all of them together in the bank, and it could be either one in case of analyzing, or you have the analysis and the debate about it. It's based on your understanding. The next one, steel isn't strong enough. It means here you need to maybe make it more stick, or maybe the steel should be anti-tank missile, like we are talking here about weapons. Storm is too old. It means here effective senator. The princess is late. When I say princess is late, princess here, when we talk about it, we can anticipate the following action for the princess. It can be about the party. So we can think deeply about what's the meaning of the rest of the sentence, or we can anticipate something like here, the king has arrived, and when I use the word arrived, it means he arrived the palace, but the king has reached, maybe reach a meeting or reach kind of a party. It's not in his palace, it could be somewhere out of his place. And here in 18, you are not going to die, you are not going to die. So for this one, we can say the person who will say this sentence, because maybe one option, one mother is so sentimental toward her son, or the other meaning for it, it could be maybe someone is injured or harm himself, and his mother trying to motivate and support him somehow, physically and psychologically, to let him stronger, or to make him stronger. I haven't eaten breakfast today. I haven't eaten caviar, and I have nothing to wear. So the three sentences here, and the fourth one, I have nothing to repair. If you have heard the first sentence in 19, I have eaten breakfast today. So I have eaten breakfast. We can think maybe the conversation, somebody asks, have you had your breakfast, or have you eaten your breakfast? Yes, I have eaten breakfast. It means I just finished maybe 1 hour, 2 hours ago. And B, I have eaten caviar. Somebody asks you in the conversation, have you tried caviar before? And you will understand that is in the past. I have nothing to wear in C. It means there is nothing appropriate for me or for that occasion at the moment, and that's why I have to find a solution somewhere else out of my area or my space. Indeed, I have nothing to repair, so nothing at all. So you want to repair maybe your car, but you don't have any kind of equipment or tools to repair what is already broken, or maybe get something down or spoiled by maybe the accident. If we move to next one, we have implicature and semantic pragmatics boundary. We can say that in this chapter we analyze how we think about the truth level. So in the previous one, in other words, implicatures are distinct from sentence meaning. They are communicated in addition to the sentence meaning and have independent truth value. So true statement could trigger a false implicature, or vice versa. Implicatures are quite different. When we are talking here in the pragmatics, we say explicature involve pragmatic reasoning. We must recognize the fact of pragmatic inferences. So the inferences here, we need to trace the sentence and find out whether it can affect the truth condition or not. Just very simple for you, and very easy for recognizing whether these kind of sentences are accurate or unfortunately inaccurate. It's I think a good way for you to reread the sentences. Like here we have in 20, if we look at 20, if the old king has died of a heart attack and a republic has been declared, then Tom will be quite content. So we read this sentence here and we can say something about it. What is the something? It could be judged to be true. Like we trace the sentence and we find that they are waiting and there is something to be happen if he or if he died. If the old king died, it should be another one. And here they say Tom. And B, we have what we call, if a republic has been declared and the old king has died of heart attack, then Tom will be quite content. What is wrong with the second one? Because the wrongness here in B, it's you cannot declare something before the king is announced to be died. So usually, if the announcement comes first, it means the king death comes first. Like in A, we have the logical sequence order and we don't judge too much how it's happened or how it's happening. That's what we need from the whole chapter. I wish you have a good reading for it. If you have a kind of a problem in understanding any topic or any kind of sentence, you can back to me. I don't have too much issues here, but at the end we need to remember something about a numerical. 2 plus 2 equal 5 should be true under at least 3 reading. 2 plus 2. So here, what do we mean by here? There is a kind of maybe quotation. I have 200 in my bank account, if not more. So you can see here numerical issues, it needs some clarification. That's why the interpretation here, it could be for extra reading. If you check here 30, if you look at 30 and 31, in 34 salesmen have called me today, if not more. 4 students carried this sofa upstairs for me, if not more. So if not more here, he could remember and quantify the approximate number that is closer to his mind or his memory. And why we give you this is just for knowledge. This kind of page or the last page, there is nothing to be asked about it in the exam, but I share with you that numbering sometimes could be a problem for interpretation, and that's why we need more clarification. We cannot be sure about it. Here are many of your friends linguists? No, all of them. Yes, in fact, all of them. So the point here, both answers are accurate, but the way of saying it, it could be kind of maybe the first one. If you reply no and you then say all of them, it means all of them already linguists. And if you say yes, in fact, all of them, both of them, A and A2, A1 and A2, it gives the same and the truth level, they are same, no problem with it. So bear in your mind that how to analyze exactly the sentences based on Grice inferences and pragmatics inferences. Thank you very much for listening and see you next week, inshallah.